Welcome into our Backyard Brothers podcast. Uh, we are talking NBA Finals today. It's finally here. The NBA Finals tip off tomorrow night, and we're going to talk about the last of the Western Conference Finals series that we didn't talk about last week, and then really dive in and preview the NBA Finals. This series that the exciting series we have that starts tomorrow. Before we get there, we have our biography segments, and so Cody's going to lead us through that now.
Yeah, so this is another week. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on some people that I feel like don't get as much recognition. I wanted to spend some time with Shaun White, um, probably one of the best, if not the best, snowboarders of all time, and one of the best Olympians, at least for USA. So I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit of a synopsis, is that the right word? A little bit of a detail, I guess, of his stats, of what he accomplished, a little bit about himself, and also share some memory, just a quick memory I have of him, and whatever you guys want to share about him as well, whether it be a memory or just something that you thought was cool, whatever it is. So Shaun White, first off, he was given the nickname of the Flying Tomato, because he'd be flying down the hills and got the bright red hair, and so he'd be nicknamed as the Flying Tomato. Um, he is a five-time Olympian, three-time gold medalist, um, and has the record for the most X Games gold medals as well. He won a medal in every X game he went to since 2002 until the day he retired. And that's obviously phenomenal. Um, he's won 10 SB awards. I'm not sure exactly which ones, but he's won those awards as well. Um, Something I thought was very interesting about him as well is he was actually born in San Diego. So I thought he would have been born in like Minnesota and just kind of grew up, snowboarding, but he was actually born in San Diego. His father was a surfer, and he had really kind of gotten into skateboarding. Was his first real, I guess, hobby. He was also born with what's known as tetralogy of Fallot, which I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a congenital heart disease that he needed to have two open heart surgeries before the age of one. So he was able to get that done and was able to live a normal functioning life because of that, the awesome technology that allowed that. Um, with being a skateboarder, his idol, his hero was Tony Hawk. And so he was a big Tony Hawk fan, and he actually met Tony Hawk. It was at a skateboarding camp for kids kind of a thing. And he said he was too afraid to talk to Tony Hawk, and so he just wanted to try to impress him. And eventually, he caught Tony Hawk's eyes, and then Tony Hawk was a mentor for him. He mentored him, and he became a professional in skateboarding before he eventually went on to snowboarding. Um, and so that's kind of neat. And then he 2022 was his last year as going into the Olympics just 2 years ago. He got fourth place in the half pipe that year, and then announced that he was going to be retiring as an athlete at that point. Um, I think a lot of times when we're talking about in these podcasts, we're talking about athletes. At least me, sometimes I forget Olympians are freaks of nature. I mean, they are absolutely amazing what they do in so many other sports that we don't realize. We talk about some like the main ones, the big five, if you will, in this podcast, but we forget how much athleticism is needed for things such as snowboarding or skiing or you name it. Um, and so I remember watching Shaun White a lot growing up. That was probably one of the most prominent names for me, was Shaun White as an Olympian, and half pipe was always my favorite thing to watch, mostly because of Shaun White. He was just so it was just beautiful, all the tricks that he would do, and flawless all the time. And I'm not sure if any of you have been snowboarding before, but it's pretty hard. I mean, I prefer skiing. Skiing is easier to me than snowboarding, but it's pretty hard. And so it's amazing that he could perfect his craft to that point where he can do those kinds of tricks. So I'll leave it up to you guys to share anything else that you learned or thoughts cool or any memory you have of him.
Good. Yeah, good segment, good biography, fantastic athlete, one of the greatest athletes. I'll just share quickly what I shared in our chat with. He also probably holds the greatest interview of all time. In that it's right after his first gold medal, he's getting interviewed on live TV, and this lady asks him, about his gold medal experience and coming back home. He's like, oh man, this is great. I was getting lots of attention, people taking pictures, people were buying drinks for me. And she goes, buying drinks? Aren't you 19? He goes, I'm talking about Mountain Dews, baby. And it's like, we know that he wasn't talking about Mountain Dews, but it's like, good cover, man. Good way to cover. And it's just like, he had that fantastic surfer attitude, skateboard attitude, snowboard attitude that was infectious and lovable, and you know, at the same time being an absolute professional. You know, he had that attitude, but he dedicated himself to the craft and became great.
Yeah, I echo what everything said so far. I had a couple of points that I wanted to hit as far as biography, and Cody hit them all. So I don't have anything really to add to that, because I was going to say that he actually started skateboarding and was too scared to actually go up to Tony Hawk, and so yeah, Cody said everything that I was going to say, and. So I'll just add that it was fun to watch the Olympics and wait for the moment that it was Shaun White's turn, because you knew he was going to do something that no one before or after was going to be able to do. And so he was that kind of athlete that, I mean, in all the sports that we cover and all the sports that we see, there's sometimes just that one guy that you're waiting for that's going to do something special. And Shaun White was that guy in snowboarding. And Cody, I've never actually gone snowboarding. I've put on a snowboard and fallen over. So that's as far as I've gotten. So yeah. But
yeah. Similarly, I've never snowboarded. I have a friend, Red, that snowboards and tries to get me to do it, but like my limbs are too long, bro. If I fall, one of these are breaking. I'm not with that. So I just don't. I'm not a big fan, but I can respect the athleticism that's required to stand on anything moving 60 miles an hour plus and hoping that your body doesn't end up like Sonny Bono's. So I think that it's an incredible feat, and added to the fact that the guy's going, what, 20 to 25 feet in the air at the short end, is super incredible. And the fact that he had also medaled in the X Games previous to the sport that he became the greatest in next is that much more impressive to me. And watching to speak about the person that Shaun White is, and you know, when watching interviews, like, because I like to get an idea of the person that we're going to cover, he was just humble and cool and like a guy you would want to just kick it with, that would make you feel good and make people smile when you're with him. You know what I mean? He's not going to be mad to servers, is what I'm saying. And I think that just in general, he was a cool person, and that came off in every interview that I watched from him, as just a guy you'd be like, yeah, that's my buddy, and you would feel proud to say that, not worried that he's going to come out like a Danny Masterson or something. I didn't get any kind of crazy vibes like that from him. And shout out to whoever stabbed that guy in prison. Now, sorry, I'm getting off track. Shaun White was awesome. That was a great pick, Cody. And he's one of those special athletes that can just do anything. Like Travis Pastrana can jump a building like he's Superman or something, then chug a monster and go eat McDonald's like he didn't just do something incredible and athletic. And I think Shaun White is one of those like under the radar super freak athletes that looking at him, you're like, Carrot Top snowboards. But then when you see him do all the stuff he can do, it's like, man, that's impressive. And I just wanted to point out just how incredible it is to be incredible at multiple sports. It's not easy. Michael Jordan couldn't do it. And so that's how I want to end it. I don't want to just roast Shaun White. I just had some good material that was tossed up there. So, yeah, good pick, Cody. That was a great biography.
Yeah. Speaking about roasting people that come up randomly, I loved that 70s show. I loved it. I watched all seasons of that show. My favorite character was Hyde. And so when I found out that Danny Masterson had done the things that he had done, that crushed my soul, man. But yeah.
Don't read the letters that Ashton Kutcher and what's her name wrote.
Yeah, I read them.
saying like, "Hey, let him out of prison. He's not that bad of a rapist." Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah.
I support you in that 100%, Scott.
Yeah.
Real quick, sorry. There's actually two things I forgot to mention. Just two quick things that I thought were interesting. He's gotten into some cameo appearances as well, Shaun White, in film, and he's a member of a rock band currently named Bad Things. He plays guitar. It's an electronic rock band, and I didn't know that, but that's what he's been doing since. So that's cool.
White Space is his clothing, right? The snowboarding clothing, White Space.
Ooh. I didn't know that, but that sounds right.
Research, baby.
I knew that he hated the nickname Flying Tomato.
Who wants to be called the Flying Tomato unless you're like a luchador and you like tomatoes?
He liked it for a while, like he owned it, where he like put logos on his hat and everything like that for it, but grew tired of it pretty quickly and wanted to be called the Animal, like from the Muppets. So yeah. He'd rather be called the Animal, which is to be fair, a much better nickname than the Flying Tomato. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, great pick, Cody. Okay, so let's jump into some NBA playoffs. Let's share a screen here. This one. Are you all seeing Mavericks versus Timberwolves? Okay.
Yep.
This was the Western Conference Finals. We talked about it last week. It was just after Game 4, and all of us thought this is probably ending in 5. And not only did it end in 5, but it was like the Timberwolves didn't even show up in Game 5. It was bad. I think the Mavericks were ahead by 30 in the third quarter, maybe even before that. So it was disappointing, especially for the fans in Minnesota, to come and hope that your team is going to start coming back in the series, take it to Game 6, and instead they lay a dud on the floor, on their own home floor, and the Mavericks, in a series that has been really close through 4 games, end up escaping really easily. So, like we said last week, it's history. No team has ever won 4 straight after losing the first 3 in a playoff series ever. And so now add another one to that list. I don't know what the record is now, but it's something like 70 or 80-0 or something like that in those situations. It might be more than that. So
I think it's closer to like 150 now.
150. Okay. Yeah. 150-0 essentially. No team has ever done it. So and add the Timberwolves to the latest casualty in that pile. So what do you want to say about this?
Yeah, so the whole series as a whole, a lot of these games were close, very close, but Mavericks were just able to edge it out, just play better in the last 2 minutes, Luka especially. But then in Game 5, Timberwolves didn't even show up, but they weren't even playing with any sort of desperation. That's Charles Barkley commented on that at halftime. He said, that the Mavericks are the team that was playing with desperation. The Mavericks were the ones getting all the loose balls. Mavericks were the ones jumping on the floor to grab a loose ball or to save it from out of bounds. And that's what the Timberwolves should have been doing. As it made me think, I could quote Billy Madison. It's like, you don't give up after an hour. You get off your butt and you go find that dog. Like, they just gave up. and it was I think they accepted the fate, and Mavericks took advantage of that, and it's just an incredible series by Dallas, and hats off to Jason Kidd and the team and for designing a strategy that completely nullified the Timberwolves defense.
Scott's still muted. I think that really just overall, I agree with you, Dustin, that they were better coached in the last 2 minutes of the game. Game 5, if your team doesn't show up, it's going to show in the final score, and that's what happened here. And I think that this loss, even though they didn't want to lose again. I think it does build and make a more ferocious Timberwolves team next year. But all the credit you can give to the Mavericks for pulling that series out and really just kind of they put the Timberwolves on their heels and never let off the pressure. They kept the boot on the neck, and that's the only win they gave up was by 5 points, which is not that big a deal. I'm okay with that as a coach. That's just a couple of balls not dropping your way and things you can clean up. But a 21-point loss, that's a different story. And I think that good things will come from this for Minnesota. And I don't know that I can say the same thing for the Mavericks. I don't know that they really have all the firepower they need coming up. But credit to them for having the better team in the latter part and throughout the series.
Yeah.
I think overall, just the last thing I would say is it was just disappointing for the Timberwolves to kind of just, lose that bad, let it go that bad. They had a good defense. And they just didn't, like Dustin said, they just didn't show up. And after you lose 3 games, there's whether I think they admit it or not, there's going to be some kind of loss of motivation no matter what. And so that's why it's impressive they impressive they won the 4th one, but after that, it's just like you said, Scott, history. It's going to be so hard to come back and do that, especially after losing 3 games straight.
Okay, so that leads us into the NBA Finals. A lot of people predicted the Boston Celtics would be here. Mavericks is a different story. Not a lot of people predicted the Mavericks would be here as the Western Conference champion. In fact, I think was it just Cody and I that predicted the Mavericks would win the second round, the semifinal series against the Thunder. Other than that, none of us picked the Thunder to win any series up until then. So Cody and I think it may have been Cody and I or Yancey and I can't remember which, but we were the only ones to pick the Mavericks to win a single series in these playoffs. And it may not change at this point, but again, we've got to talk a little bit about how these teams got to where they are. The Celtics have the best record in the NBA by 7 games. It's crazy. But again, the path that they took, they defeated Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat in the first round in 5 games. They defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games in the semifinals, who didn't have Donovan Mitchell or Jarrett Allen in the final 2 games of the series. And they defeated the Indiana Pacers. They swept them in 4 games, who didn't have their best player, Tyrese Halliburton, in the final 2 games. You look elsewhere in the Eastern Conference, they didn't have to go up against the Milwaukee Bucks because Giannis Antetokounmpo was injured and lost to the Pacers in the first round. They also didn't have to go up against the New York Knicks because Julius Randle was out, and they lost in the final couple games of the series against the Pacers. They lost Jalen Brunson, they lost OG Anunoby, they lost Mitchell Robinson. I mean, they lost everyone. And so it's just Eastern Conference was winning by attrition. Everyone else just kind of fell off. Celtics had their own issues with Kristaps Porzingis, but he probably should be back tomorrow. I haven't heard one way or the other yet. Maybe someone else has. On the other side, the Mavericks had to go 6 games against the Clippers, who technically we're also missing Kawhi Leonard for most of that series. And so that you can talk about that as a possibility. But then they defeated a healthy Thunder in 6 games, who are just inexperienced. And then they beat up the Timberwolves in 5 games. And looking at the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, the Timberwolves look like the best team in the NBA. And so that's something to really point your hat at. Point your finger at there, that how they beat the Timberwolves, who look so good in the first 2 rounds. These 2 teams, the Mavericks and the Celtics, played 2 games in the regular season, 1 in Dallas, 1 in Boston. The Celtics won both, and neither one was particularly close. An average margin of victory of 18.5 points in those 2 games that the Celtics won. Some history that I'd like to point out before turning it over to you guys. Here are the main scores here. Again, Kristaps Porzingis should be back. If not for game 1, then probably for game 2. But Luke and Kyrie, obviously the engine that makes that go. The Celtics have a lot of engines on their team. But want to mention that the last time that the Mavericks won an NBA Finals was in 2011 when their current coach, Jason Kidd, was playing on that team. And so Jason Kidd won the last championship with the Mavericks as a player, and he's now trying to win as a coach for the first time since then. The Celtics have not won the NBA Finals since 2008, but they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals now 6 of the last 8 years. They were here in the NBA Finals 2 years ago, where they lost to the Warriors in, was it 5 games, 6 games, something like that. And so Celtics have been here. The Mavericks have not. It's been a while I don't think the Mavericks have been to the NBA Finals since they last won it in 2011. So it's been a while. Anyway, let me shut up. And I have no idea who's going to start. Let's just randomly start with Dustin.
Yeah. So I have a few things to say before I get into a prediction. So you're absolutely right about how the Celtics had what could be considered an easier path through the Eastern Conference, right? But they won all of those series handedly and showed their power, that they did not play down to their opponents. That they continued at the same strength, and I expect them to continue at the same strength through the final series. That they're obviously a fantastic team. There's an interesting history in the NBA and, in fact, all of sports of the top team not being the winner at the end of the season, not being able to win the last game of the season. And so it'll be interesting about having to see how that history proves out. Now, regarding the Mavericks, so the Celtics and the Mavericks, those 2 games, I think that we can all say that this Mavericks playoff team is very different than the Mavericks regular season team. Mavericks regular season team struggled to stay in the playoff picture for most of the season. That they're usually somewhere in that 7 to 9 range for most of the season, and then were able to kind of make a push at the end in order to get to that 5 spot. But this was not a team that had it all together, that they had not gelled. But through this playoffs, I also see how they've stepped up during each different round of the playoffs. Against the Clippers, we know that could have gone either way, and they played well enough to get on to the next round. And then against the Thunder, they played absolutely fantastic and shut the Thunder down and played great. And then their play against the Timberwolves was championship level, some of the greatest basketball that we've seen this season. And Luka and Kyrie both had fantastic games, all throughout that series where they just completely went off. And so I think that these teams are actually very evenly matched. I think like they say, defense wins championships. I think that it's up to the Mavericks to play really good defense, especially in the paint, in order to win this and let Luka and Kyrie do their thing. And so my prediction is the point. The thing for Dallas to aim for is 105 points. If Dallas can keep Boston under 105 points, they'll win every game that they do that. And so with that, I'm going to say Mavericks win in 6 games.
Interesting. I'll jump in. I would say I agree with a lot of the points you make, Dustin, and I think that you're right with a lot of that. I like the animosity that you're going to get from Kyrie playing in this game. He doesn't like the Celtics. The Celtics don't like him. That's apparent. If not, just go watch him flip him off. I think that cost him $25,000 or something. Hope it was worth it. Sick flex. I think that for sure that plays into the series as a whole, but I don't think it's enough to outpower the better team. So I'm going to take the Celtics, but the Mavericks are going to stretch them to 7. I just think that the Mavericks are going to start strong, and I don't know who's going to get injured, but somebody will, and it's going to affect the Mavericks negatively, and the Celtics are just going to kind of squeak by and pull this out. That's kind of how I see it going.
All right. First off, it's really impressive, what the Mavericks were able to do against the Timberwolves, that they could do that. I'm still of the belief that, and I'm not sure if I can get into the details of this, but I'm still the belief that I think a Celtics Timberwolves game probably would have been more fun. I think that the Celtics are the better team. Although they had a pretty easy path to the championship, they also won 60 plus games in the season. And they did phenomenal there. So I think that this game is not going to be nearly as exciting as we think it is. I think the Celtics are going to win in 5.
Okay, so back to me. We have a 5, 6, and a 7. I don't think it's a 4-game series, so I'm going to be copying one of you three. I mean, I like what everyone has said, and I really, Dustin, I agree with you that the Mavericks are a different team in these playoffs than they were in the regular season. They've really stepped up, Luke and Kyrie in particular, but that defense has stepped up significantly too, and they're going to bother the Celtics in particular down low. I don't think I think Porzingis is going to be beaten up, and I don't think that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to get the drives that they've been used to. They're going to have to shoot from 3, which they've been just fine doing this season. They're going to have to shoot those jump shots, which also they've been fine this season. One thing that we're not mentioning here, though, is I also think the Celtics are a better team now than they were in the regular season. I think they've stepped up. They've gone 12-2 in these playoffs. They've won 7 straight games in these playoffs so far. Again, you can talk about being down particular certain levels of competition because of who they are or are not playing, but the Celtics seem like a team of destiny. They've seemed like that all season long. They have this vision in their heads. I mean, the Mavericks do too, but it seems like the Celtics are just more prepared to finally take advantage of this year than any other year in recent past. Again, I think the Mavericks are the best team they're going to face this postseason, and so it's not going to come easy. So I'm going to say it's also going to go 6 games, but the Celtics are going to win in Dallas to close it out.
Lone Ranger there, Dustin.
Yeah, I like how you said Celtics appear to be the team of destiny, and it's interesting because I spoke to that about the history of sports in general. Is how often does the team of destiny actually win it? And it's not very often.
It's a fair point.
I'm trying. I mean, I didn't do the research, but I can think back when the Lakers did their three-peat in the early 2000s. They were the team to beat, and they did it. When the Celtics won their championship in 07-08, they were the number 1 seed as well. And when the Warriors won their 3 championships recently, they were the top seed in all 3 of those. And so it does happen maybe more than you think too. When the Bulls and technically the Jazz were the better team in the regular season in those 2 finals, but I don't know if anyone actually predicted the Jazz to win that series anyway. But so I mean, you're right. You're right. I think when we talk about NFL in particular, I think that destiny thing doesn't happen as much, simply because anything can happen in a 1-game situation. It's different in the NBA when you have a 7-game series. Not always, because it's really a series of adjustments, a game of adjustments. But when you have to win 4 games, a lot of times the better team is going to win.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to talk about with this NBA Finals? Okay. Let me stop share real quick because I need to pull up my next one. Oops, let's not share that.
Could have been worse.
Okay.
Good thing my browser's not on here.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't resist making that joke.
Okay, here we are. The Florida Panthers did beat the New York Rangers in 6 games. On the other side, the Edmonton Oilers beat the number 1 overall seed Dallas Stars in 6 games. That game 6 coming in Edmonton, Ontario. And so we have a Florida Panthers versus Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup Finals. This would be Florida's first ever Stanley Cup championship if they win the series. It would be Edmonton's first championship since Wayne Gretzky won for them in the early 1990s. And so it's a long time for either one of these teams. In addition, it's also the longest distance between 2 teams in a Stanley Cup final ever. You got Northwestern Canada and Southeastern Florida. So that's a long way to travel between those games. Okay.
Isn't this also a repeat for Florida? Weren't they just here last year?
Florida was there last year. They lost to Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup last year. So Florida's trying to win, to get back there and win it this time. Edmonton hasn't been there in years. I don't know when they last got there or if it was in the 90s when they won, but I don't know. So anyway, what do you guys have to offer? We'll talk predictions here in a second, but if anyone has analysis first.
How is Florida good at every single sport but terrible at making good humans? I don't get it. That's all.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that question.
Florida man.
I'm again, none of us are hockey watchers for the most part, but it's always amazing when you see, if I'm understanding, Edmonton's the 7 seed. Is that right? I mean,
no, they're the 2.
They're the 2. Okay. Then never mind. I had it flipped around then. Yeah. So this is a matchup of Florida looks like the team of destiny, being that number 1 seed, and Edmonton, there. And so this is an exciting matchup. And just looking at a team like Florida who has this revenge factor in their eyes, I think I've got to give it to them with that revenge factor. And so I'd say Florida in 6 games.
Yeah, I'll go next. I think I agree with a lot of what you just said, Dustin. But for some reason, I don't know if I can really put it in words. I'm feeling an Edmonton rise here. I think it's going to be really tough because of that revenge factor you're talking about. So I think it's going to go 7 games, but I think Edmonton's going to pull it out.
I think the team that's going to get the puck into the net more often than the team that doesn't get the puck into the net as often as the team that does is going to be the loser, and the other one, the one that got the puck into the net more, is going to be the winner. And that's who I'm going with, Florida, because I took a shit on an entire state.
I'm leaving you alone too, Cody. I think Florida is gonna win this series. I think they've similar to the Boston Celtics. They seem like they're built for this season to win the whole thing. They've barely been stopped this postseason. I mean, two series have gone 6 games, but I really think that Florida's. I picked Florida to be here from the beginning of our Stanley Cup Finals. I had them playing. I can't remember who I had them playing. I might have had them playing Edmonton actually. I will have to return to when we predicted that. This may be actually my prediction. I'll have to look at that. Anyway, I do think Florida's going to win this series, but it's probably going to go 6 games. Okay. Anything else about this series? Did I miss anyone?
No.
Okay. All right. So let me stop sharing that button. Okay. So we are moving on. We have half an hour to go through some PTI questions that Yancey had come up with. come up with. So Yancey, lead us in.
Yeah, sweet. So basically setting this up, I'm just trying to vary our opinions a little bit since all of us decided to just disagree with Cody last week. So I was trying to kind of be like, how do we make this to where we can kind of have a discussion about it instead of shut up, Cody, you're wrong, we're right, we hate what you said. So let's see if we can try to do that. So the first thing I wanted to present is that, in my opinion, I think that Caitlin Clark from Iowa, her star power is starting to kind of wane in the WNBA. Almost made her a wrestler. And Angel Reese is actually starting to kind of get her juice bolstered. And I'm seeing her more often in the YouTube feeds and things like that. Just kind of more prominently than I'm seeing Caitlin Clark. What I'm seeing about Caitlin Clark is people are mad that people like her and assume it's because she's a white person, which is weird. That's an odd take to make on that. She's great at basketball. I don't care if she was purple. I think it's just odd to me that as soon as they hit the WNBA, has her team picked up a win since we last spoke?
Yeah, not many, but they have won.
Okay. So when I had last checked, they were like 0-4 or something, which is not a good look when you're supposed to be like the next hot thing. It's like if Steph came to the Warriors and just couldn't get a W, no one's going to respect his talent in the same. And I see it kind of going that way. She's not getting calls from refs. I don't know if you guys saw that flagrant foul, but that was absurd, bro. That was, what are you, Jokic chick? Calm down. Why'd you run up on her like that? So some of those factors are, to me, draining kind of the attention from her, and a lot of it going to Angel Reese. And I wanted to get your guys' opinion on if you felt the same way or how you feel about that situation in general.
Yancey, pick our order for us. Who do you want to go first, second, third? And we'll just follow that.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure, man. Just go reverse alphabetical.
Okay, that means me. Okay. When you have a number one overall pick in any sport, NFL, NBA, WNBA, you expect them to immediately perform well. It's the pressure of being the number one overall pick. And we looked at her stats maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and they weren't good, right? But you look at them now, and because we're comparing players, I pulled up Angel Reese's as well. Neither team is very good. Indiana's won 2 games. Chicago's won 3. So neither one is good. So you can say neither one is really having the impact to take a team to immediately contender. But Caitlin Clark is now averaging 16 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal. She's shooting better from 3. It's still not great, 30% from 3 at this point, but it's better than, I think it was 21% when we were last. So she's shooting better from that area. She's the leading scorer on the team, and so she is scoring, she is rebounding, she is assisting, she's doing everything that she's supposed to do to try to get those teams some wins. Again, when we're talking number one overall picks, there's easy comparisons to be made about a first-year bumble. Peyton Manning threw 30 interceptions his first year with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm sure we weren't analyzing anything back then, but I'm sure a lot of people were saying 30 interceptions, dude, bust. So, but it's just the issue of being in the number one overall pick. You have a lot of pressure on you to perform. And I think Caitlin Clark has really picked that up to perform in a really good way to show that she is on that trajectory to become a superstar. She's not there yet, as much as a lot of people thought she would be immediately. She's not going to be. But I'd say another 3 or 4 years, she could be a huge star. Angel Reese right now, 11 points per game, 9 rebounds. So not bad either, but not the same kind of numbers that Caitlin Clark is putting up. And so I would say that it's just that lens that people are looking through as a first overall pick that kind of clouds judgment. But I'm looking at the long game here, and I think she's set up for success still.
Yeah, I'm disagreeing with Yancey, but agreeing with Scott and at least some particulars here. In that, yeah, I looked at their college stats for both Caitlin and Angel and their professional stats, and I would say both of them have taken a fairly equal step down in field goal percentage, points, kind of normal effectiveness. That they've both had this drop off, and I feel like it's expected. And you mentioned Stephen Curry as a comparison. His first few years in the NBA were also a struggle. A lot of that were specific to some injuries that he had. He had struggled with his ankles. But I don't remember the first year the Warriors made the playoffs, but it was 3 or 4 years into his career before he really became the household name that then has made the impact on the NBA. And so I think that so far jury is still out on both of them, but I would say that they're both having an expected drop off because being a professional is so much different than being an amateur. And then also you feel for Caitlin Clark, but also I bet that she loves that every single team, every single player that matches up for her absolutely is going to give 100% of everything that she has to try to shut her down because it's her moment of fame now.
I think I'm more on the side of Yancey and disagreeing a little bit more with Scott and Dustin. Let me first say that this is something that I predicted at the beginning, is that we would see this kind of shift, which isn't hard to predict, but we would see a shift of Caitlin Clark going down and seeing a little bit more exposure with Angel Reese. I want to point out this, at least my interpretation, but the specific of Yancey's question. Star power. What I understood is the popularity, essentially.
The clout surrounding the person,
exactly.
not necessarily their ability to play basketball for their team.
Right, and that's what I understood. The popularity, the star power, or the shine, if you will, the polish, the glamour, as offering more of a perspective of just more of a audience member rather than an analytic, as both Dustin and Scott more are when it comes to basketball. I personally have seen more about Angel Reese than I have seen Caitlin Clark. Scrolling through Facebook or something, I'll see things about I'll see things about Angel Reese this, Angel Reese that. You should have seen this shot that she made. Oh, the drama, yada yada yada, whatever it is. And then a few of the smaller things about Caitlin Clark and how she's struggling. All the jealousy that's popping up in the league because of Caitlin Clark and her previous and college days. I personally have seen a lot more about Angel Reese. So if I was someone who didn't know either of these girls, which I mean, let's be honest, a lot of people don't follow basketball, let alone female basketball, women's basketball, excuse me. If I was in that category, I would know who Angel Reese is more than Caitlin Clark. And so to Yancey's point, that the star power or the glamour, the shine, it has washed down on Caitlin Clark and has risen a little bit up with Angel Reese.
I would disagree with that. You look at the fans who show up, the WNBA fans. All of Indiana Fever's home games have been sold out. That has been the case for a couple of other WNBA teams, but the road games, when Indiana travels on the road, the host team that they're playing has a surge in ticket sales to see Caitlin Clark. And there's numbers to back that up. I read a story and I was trying to pull it up here when you were talking, and I haven't quite got there yet, but here we go. No, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Anyway, I'll find that story and I'll share it. But the fact was that when the Indiana Fever goes to play any other team, the fans are showing up at that game when they're playing the Fever more than any other team that they're playing. And so it does show that Caitlin Clark is still the most popular ticket in town when she shows up. It's not the same when the Chicago Sky show up with Angel Reese. So I don't think that popularity has gone down at all for Caitlin Clark. I think people are still showing up in big numbers to watch her play, even if her scoring numbers aren't the same in college.
Yeah, I think to add on to that a little bit, sports writers' jobs are to write stories that you read, that drag your attention. News media outlets, whether that's Facebook or something, their job is to present you with ideas that grab your attention and make you feel emotional about it. And so it's that everybody's doing their job really well.
So I think my rebuttal, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off, Yancey, I'm sure you want to bring something in here, but I think that with Caitlin Clark, with what you're mentioning, Scott, she's still writing the tales of her college career. This is her 10th game in the WNBA, something like that. So I think a lot of it is still people are like anticipating, okay, this is the game where she pops out. This is the game. And so it's really still writing the tales of that. When Angel Reese, it's more of, wow, look what she's actually doing in this. And so I think that as far as the star power, the glamour of the WNBA, of where that is, it's more rising with Angel Reese at this point in time. Not saying that it can't rise with Caitlin Clark, as you said before. 2, 3, 4 years down the road, I could be right there with you. But as of this time, this moment, the outlets that you're pointing out, Dustin, what I'm seeing as that person who's not really the analytic, just the audience, I'm seeing more Angel Reese and less Caitlin Clark. And any of the stuff that's being said about Caitlin Clark is a lot of the writing the tales of her college career, where trying to say, where is the Caitlin Clark we know going to show up? When it's Angel Reese, there's the Chicago Angel Reese we're talking about.
I think Cody really understood the heart of the question of what I was going for there and what I was setting up. I wasn't trying to say that Angel Reese is a better player by any metric, that she's helping her team by any metric. Simply star power. Can you get tickets sold having this woman play for your team? And I think that the answer to that question is yes, with Angel Reese. And to lend credit to what Cody was saying, to the mass effect, like you're talking about, Dustin, that emotional draw also gets people to open their wallets. And you give me, I'll take 150 million dummies over 150 smart people that actually understand what we're talking about any day of the week if we're talking about taking money from them. So I think that, Cody, you understood the heart of the question, definitely. And I think that Scott and Dustin, you both gave valid points to the fact that certainly Caitlin Clark, I'm not saying that she's a nobody or anything like that. I'm just saying recently by the social standard, I was seeing that rise in Angel Reese and kind of hearing less and less about Caitlin Clark because the performance that she had that was astonishing wasn't really following her. And that's all I was really trying to get to. And I think that Cody really, I liked your assessment of the question that I was asking, and looking at it from more of I was looking at it as a casual, because I don't know enough about the NBA. I couldn't have told you about that story that Scott referenced, and that was from a casual perspective. I see this is the arc of the story here. If I were to have to pull something out of that, and so I just wanted to recognize that. Good job.
Yeah.
Anybody want to toss something on there? Or are we ready to go on to 2?
I just had one little other thing. I was looking at her game by game stats, and Cody, her breakout game came, if you could call it that, May 28th. So just a week ago, against Las Vegas. She had 30 points in that game. 30 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. She dominated in that game. She also had 7 turnovers, but but she that was her career high so far. She had 20 points 2 days later. So, but she had 3 points yesterday. So like it's still kind of up and down, but she has had some big games. So it's not like always 12 points, but yeah. Go ahead, Yancey.
Cool. So the next one I wanted to go through, we have Jake Paul. I think, am I getting him right? It's not the other one, not the one that laughs at suicides. Just had to make sure I don't let people forget about that. So Jake Paul, not his brother Logan, the one who watches suicides. is going to fight Mike Tyson. And I think that these kind of fights, specifically, I'm talking about the age gap, not the talent gap or the fact that one of them's retired, but these grandpa fights is how I'm going to coin them. They do need to stop. We're putting legends' health at risk so that way they can pay their rent, and there should be some kind of insurance or something in place. And also, Jake Paul, you don't get any clout for punching a grandpa and pretending like you're boxing a boxer. He's retired, and I don't give any respect to somebody that is a bully, and that's a bully move to beat up somebody who's more than 30 years your senior, even though he was the greatest boxer on the planet at his time. It's no longer his time, so you're taking an easy route in kind of a cowardly way. You should be fighting Deontay Wilder if you think you're that, or Tyson Fury if you think that you're that, or his brother or something like that. And I think that pushing society to root for a young man to beat up an old man is a problem, and that's overall my problem with these types of fights. Cross athletes and everything like that, I think that's awesome to take an MMA guy and a boxing guy and have them fight, or make Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal prove that they know how to fight. I think that would be great, but to make old people fight young people is a bad idea, and I think it's going to devolve, and we're going to end up feeding people to lions again.
Should we go the opposite way this time, or
however you guys want to rock with it? I don't care.
We can go in the same way, but I'm hung up on something you said at the very end, because I want to see a 72-year-old Steven Seagal fight a 63-year-old Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Let's go. They're both old, and it's fair. Invite Dr. Kevorkian. We can finish the loser off. Or the winner. I don't know how barbaric we're getting.
If you're talking about grandpas fighting, there's your grandpa match right there. Steven Seagal versus Jean-Claude Van Damme now. But I do understand where you're coming from. And I agree with parts of that we shouldn't be encouraging as a society, hey, let's drag this guy from his hospital bed and beat the crap out of him. I get that. I not knowing the sport as well as obviously you and probably Dustin as well, I'm assuming that there's preparation that is involved in this for Mike Tyson's ankle. He's not hooked up to a hospital bed IV. You know, the guy I'm sure has been cleared medically to fight.
He could whoop all four of us at the same time currently. That's not the point, though.
Yeah, but obviously there's a little bit of a marketing angle here that has to come into play. When you bring Mike Tyson back into the ring, you're gonna market the hell out of it. You're gonna say, come pay $10 per whatever per second to see this, and we're going to make $150 billion as an organization off of this fight, and so it's also, I mean, there's an angle to Mike Tyson's career. You say he can have a renaissance. What if he beats him? What if he beats Jake Paul? Like that's a story.
Who cares? He was supposed to. He was the greatest thing on the planet. It's a lose-lose.
Sure, I understand that from that angle, but at the same time, I get it that this guy's saying I can beat Mike Tyson, and you're saying, well, it's a lose-lose for both sides then, because if you lose to Mike Tyson, you're in trouble, and if you beat him, you just beat the crap out of an old man. For Mike Tyson, you're saying, yeah, of course, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You should beat anybody, but at the same time, there's a story behind this that can be told about a career renaissance. At 60 years old, Mike Tyson is beating a guy half his age. Like he is still the greatest thing ever. There's a huge storyline that you can bring there. So I understand your point, Yancey, but I also understand the business aspect of this to really capitalize on it.
Well, press rewind and go back 3 years when he fought Roy Jones Jr., an actual boxer, a true opponent, and an exhibition. And you get that thing of like, could he still do it? They already answered that, bro. It was like boring at best. And no, he couldn't still do it. That's why I have a problem with it. And like, yeah, he hit hard, but that's 3% of boxing, dude. Like everybody hits hard, everybody's tough. And so the intangibles, once those fall off, you're just a dude in the ring with a dude. And you're 60. You're a 60-year-old dude in there with a dude. And so it's just different. When we're talking about fighting, it's not could Jordan still hit a jump shot? You know what I mean? It's a different question entirely.
You know, about bringing old people into the ring, you mentioned a few names. I want to bring the 79-year-old Chuck Norris in to kill them all.
Well, we actually did that. It was called Mortal Kombat, and that's why there's Chuck Norris jokes. Get your mind right, young man.
You know, with I again, it is interesting. You know, it's one of those things. Mike Tyson, maybe he's looking for another paycheck, whatever it is, whatever's motivating him to say yes to this, and whatever's motivating Jake Paul to say yes to this. Obviously, you know, the sport has said, okay, sure, we'll do it. But from my perspective as a casual fan, I know that a good percentage of the fights that I have watched that brought me into the sport were these special fights, whether it was McGregor and Mayweather and Pacquiao, a handful of others that didn't expect to see these people, and they were retired and coming back anyway to fight, and they brought me more into the sport. And then it was, oh, this was actually kind of fun to watch. I want to watch more of actual athletes doing this, not retired old grandpas and losers. I want to go see actual athletes. And so what I expect is that there are going to be lots of people that have maybe never watched a fight before, really want to see Jake Paul get his face broken. And they're going to tune in and watch it. You know, if it goes the other way, they're going to say, wait, why didn't he bite his ear off? You know, things like that. Right? And there's going to be a whole bunch of discussion, and people are going to say, hey, that was actually kind of fun to watch. I think I'm going to actually watch a real fight, not something that's set up and dumb. I'm going to watch a real fight. And that can only grow the sport, which is good. So while I'm not a fan of a 6-year-old man fighting somebody half his age and all of that, just for the health of the person, the health of the sport is going to be greatly influenced.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's hard for me to look at it from the business perspective as a guy that's been in there, because then it feels dirtier to me, because it's like, man, I was just trying to give y'all something cool to watch, like a fun Saturday night. Like, the money's cool, I don't mind it, but to be 60 and have to fight for money it's sad, bro. It's sad. He doesn't want to do this. I'll tell you that 100%, bro. Even the animal inside of him that is a competitor doesn't want to do this, bro. Fighting's not easy. It's like one of the hardest things you can do, aside from getting shot at by terrorists or something like that. And even that, you know, they learn from a lot of MMA fighters in hand to hand. And so I think that, yes, it's good for the sport and that you're getting eyes, but it's a freak fight. Like, Faces of Death sold millions of VHSs. Does it mean you want people watching it? No, you're building psychopaths.
But
so
why can't Tyson go do another commercial? Like, what's pushing him towards this? Why can't he throw his face or some tattoo on his face on some type of product and sell that? He can make $1 million easy doing a commercial or doing something like that. Why is he fighting?
I'm just gonna go make another Hangover movie.
Yeah, there you go. I'd watch it. So I think a big portion of this is so I can speak from a personal perspective. When you can do something at an elite level, but then you can't, it's so hard to tell yourself, like, look in a mirror and say, hey, Yancey, you're not the same Yancey you used to be. So that's probably what's going on. Mike Tyson is having that conversation. No, bro, I could do it. I guarantee I could knock this kid out. I can't even believe that he believes he can fight me. And that is just, I mean, that's hubris and pride. And those are sins. You're going to end up faced with the reality when you're breathing heavy that you're a 60-year-old man again. And that's not to say that he can't knock Jake Paul out. I fully expect him to. But, I mean, there's a great chance that he can't, because dude, we have to be faced with reality. And we can't just ignore the fact that he is almost 60 years old. And I think overlooking that, it does us all a disservice as people. Like, just in general, I helped an old lady across the street today, like, because she was old and cars move faster than old people. 20-year-olds move faster than old people. And I'm worried that if we pull this out of perspective and say, but he's the greatest, it's to make money, well, Netflix is going to sell us kiddie porn next year. And I'm not for that. So just because it sells money and you can get people to look at it doesn't make it a good thing. So I do like that you brought that, like, hey, you're bringing people that didn't watch the sport in to watch the sport, but some of those people I don't want watching. I'm going to just be real with you. Keep them. You can keep them, and I'll stay in a basement and do this sport I love. And I don't need every TikToker with blue hair liking what I do. I think that that's given us a problem, is trying to please everybody. It's not for everybody, and it shouldn't be.
Cody, I'll let you speak in just a second, but it made me think of the story that I saw this week of Drew Brees saying that he could play again. He could play. If anyone saw that he said, if it was not for my right arm, which he can't lift his arm past like here now because of his shoulder issues, and he's like, if it wasn't for that, I could be out there and playing. And he says, I'll do anything. I'll do option passes. I'll do I'll run option offense, college offense. I'll do this and that. I said, come on, I don't want to see Drew Brees get smacked into the turf one more time. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Cody. Go ahead. You're muted. Cody.
I'll say it louder.
You're muted. I say bring back Steve Young for the 49ers, if that's the case.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, weird. Okay. I was gonna say, well, first thing, when you were imitating Mike Tyson, we all know it'd be like, all right, boy, we got to get this going. That's what he would be actually.
Netflix, I'm gonna need $3 billion.
Exactly.
I need $3 billion to fight that Jake Paul kid.
Second, I actually disagree with you, Yancey. I understand what the points you're making; they're valid points, but he's not being dragged out of his bed. This is something that he's chosen to do. This is something that he's willingly doing. He understands the risk. He's been boxing. He understands the risks of this. The second point that I wanted to make, and I'm not sure if anyone said this while I was dealing with my internet problems, but probably the best and biggest fight that I've ever seen was the McGregor-Mayweather fight. Mayweather came back in. I understand a little bit difference in age. He was 40, McGregor was 29, but there was still a pretty big difference. And Mayweather had come in from retirement saying, all right, sure, I'll fight you, you cocky head, and so he brought back in and they did that fight. That was something that sold, I mean, I don't know if it was maybe close to $1 billion, probably hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I know that Mayweather got or McGregor got $100 million and Mayweather got like $280 million from that fight. That was something that was one of the first big fights that I had watched, and so that's something that brought me for this. So this is something that's definitely, like what Scott said, a marketing thing, bringing a lot of people to it. And this is not something that this is not gladiator style. We're not putting them in the ring. All right, we're going to make you fight now so we can get some money. Mike Tyson has agreed to this. This is something that he's willing to do. He understands the risk because of his career in it. And so if he wants to do this, he wants to try it again, more power to him. And while they're at it, he'll make some money for the business.
I totally agree. It'll get people to watch, but again, I got to lean back to my point. Just because people will watch it doesn't make it good. I just have to say that. And also, I want to point out that 50 Cent still offers $1.3 million to Floyd Mayweather if he'll read one page of Harry Potter. He'll give that 1.3 to any charity of Floyd Mayweather's choosing. Still ain't heard that page yet. Anyway, I'm sure he's a great boxer, but he can't read. Anyway, not to get on to Floyd, I think that fight was great, and that's a different thing. 60 and 20 isn't 40 and 29. That's 11 years versus an entire lifetime for some people. You know what I mean? And so I hate to beat a dead horse, but just because people are going to watch it doesn't make it a good idea. I still think morally it's wrong. And I think physically, someone who is friendly with Mike Tyson should say, hey, dude, you were the best boxer in the world. You're not the best boxer in the world. You used to be like, they need to have the Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub, hey, dog, have you thought about this type of conversation? Because I don't think that that's happened yet for anybody, because there's a bunch of leeches hanging off of Mike Tyson needing this Netflix deal to go through so they can pay their rent and pay their car bill and whatever. And nobody wants to say, hey, Mike, don't go get this $6 million because I don't want to steal two of it from you. I don't think Mike Tyson has ever had any of those people in his life, i.e. Don King or that chick that stole from him, Robin Givens or whatever. And so I think that that's a big push, and that's why people are able to sell this to us, is because Mike Tyson might not need the money and is willing to do it, but Mike Tyson also has a family he has to support, and he's not going to say, my wife wants me to go get punched out for her.
A lot of people saw those Batman movies back in the 90s with George Clooney and Joel Schumacher and all that horrible, campy style of Batman movies. Doesn't mean it was a good idea that those movies were made.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, young man. The 90s
Yeah.
were wild.
Okay, let's move on to the last one. We got 3 minutes to just talk about this one really quick. We can go over a couple minutes.
Yeah, so basically, my opinion is that LeBron James's son, Bronny, would not even be in the conversation as far as merit play-wise to be into the NBA. Size-wise, I think he's 6'1", right? Something like that.
6'4". 6'4".
6'4". Oh, I'm sorry. And so that's better than 6'1" for sure, but not overly impressive talent-wise. College, I didn't think, did we see a whole lot out of him in college that made us go, wow, that's LeBron's kid, or anything above, hey, look, a basketball player. I don't think we saw any of that, and I think give him less than 4 years, he's out of the NBA, and LeBron wishes he had not stayed to play with his son.
I think I mostly agree with you. I mean, USC didn't even do well in the season. They didn't go to the NCAA tournament. They didn't. I don't even think they did much postseason. Period. Bronny James wasn't even the best player on his own team, and so like that's concerning. I don't know why he decided to jump to the NBA after this year. He should have stayed one more year at least, get a little bit more experience at USC. I think it influenced him that his dad is as old as he is, and that they've had this dream of playing on the same team in the NBA together, and so it influenced Bronny probably to jump before he should into the NBA. But I think LeBron's name and power will have a whole lot of sway. It'll get Bronny drafted, even though, I mean, any other player with Bronny's stats would never be drafted this year, but Bronny will be drafted. It might be second round, but he'll get drafted. You know, depending on what happens, LeBron may go to whatever team he's playing and play with his kid. It's a cool story. I don't know about the staying power. Like you said, and I completely agree with you, Yancey, that if LeBron's name wasn't attached to Bronny, we wouldn't be having a conversation about this kid from USC even being drafted this year. But I think I disagree a little bit on the timeline. I think just because he's LeBron's kid, he's going to have a career of riding a bench, and maybe he'll develop into a player. He may need a few more years to really develop into a pivotal role player on a team. He's never going to be the game-changing player his father was, ever. But I think his name alone will get him a spot for 6 or 7 years in the NBA.
Good comments. I feel bad for Bronny James because he's trying to fit into size 1 million shoes. It's the biggest shoes that anyone's ever had to fill, probably since Jeffrey Jordan. Dude, I remember that in the probably mid to late 2000s about Michael Jordan's son going to play college basketball, and it was a tiny college because he wasn't that good. I couldn't remember where he went, but people were really disappointed that Michael Jordan's son wasn't that good at basketball, and people were really disappointed. I remember that happening. I also remember going to a Jazz game in Utah, and I was there live, and Jazz were down by 20 points, and then the crowd cheered the absolute loudest that I'd ever heard a crowd cheer, because
I know what you're talking about.
David Stockton. And the crowd cheers the loudest they'd ever hear as 5'10" David Stockton checks into the game playing for the Jazz. And, he had a short NBA career, a few years, John Stockton's son, and people absolutely loved to see him play. They didn't care that John Stockton was back home in Washington or wherever he was. They cared that David Stockton, John Stockton's son, was wearing a Jazz uniform. And so, to Scott's point, yeah, Bronny, he's probably not going to be very good, and it's unfortunate. I feel bad for him that he has to try to wear 1 million size shoe, but people are going to love to watch him play simply because his last name is James. And so I hope that he gets some really good development and becomes a good player in the NBA, but it's not going to be next year.
I think that's all pretty valid points. I agree mostly with Yancey. I think that, like you guys said, there wasn't anything really super impressive with his play at USC. Me being more of a casual fan, if he's not good, I'm not watching him. I don't watch LeBron James play as it is, so it's like, as a casual fan, I'm not going to be watching Bronny James play. And so that's my own, as a casual, I don't even know if I can consider myself a casual fan. As a every now and then turn on the fan when it's an NBA playoff game or something, I'll watch that. And so I agree with you, Yancey. The thing I disagree, though, with, you did say that at the end, 4 years later or something, LeBron James is going to regret having stayed in the league so long to play with his son. I disagree with that. I think that he's going to hold that memory close and dear, that he was able to play with his son in the NBA. That's a cool memory that a lot of people can't hold on to. And I don't think he's going to care that he had to wait until he was 40 to be able to have 1 year, if that, to play with his son. Anyone wants to do that, whether or not you're just out of the park playing with your son or if it's in the NBA. That's going to be a memory he's going to cherish forever.
Yeah. Quick comment on that. Sorry, quick comment is LeBron James said something, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, in which he commented on that and had a really good, showed a lot of maturity. LeBron did, in which he basically said, I've got to remember that this is my dream. It's not his. It's my dream to play with my son. It's not his dream to play with his dad. And so if it works out, great. But I've got to remember that I've got to let him live his own life and pursue his own dreams.
I like that too, when I heard that. And Cody, to what you said, that has never been done. We've never seen a father and son play together in the NBA at the same time. That's never happened. We've seen brothers play many times, but never a father and son. And just to bring this to a different angle, there's a guy that was drafted in the NFL, 7th round. His name is Brendan Rice, out of USC as well, as luck would have it, by the Los Angeles Chargers. Jerry Rice's son, drafted by the Los Angeles Chargers in the 7th round. He didn't really have a great career at USC either. He had a total of, I think he had 37 catches last year for USC. So it's not, he didn't have a great season. He also played for Colorado for a couple of years here in Boulder, before transferring to USC. But 7th round pick, he was drafted because of his name, right? Rice, Jerry, the best receiver ever to play in the NFL. His son has got to have some kind of bloodlines running through him. Who knows how long he'll play, if he'll play at all this season. But it's the same idea that he's probably going to have a 2 or 3 year career simply because of the name on the back of his jersey. But
who was drafted like 2nd overall, 3rd overall? What was his name? Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh yeah, him too. Yeah, but he had the college career that no one's had in a long time. Yeah. Ohio, he's proven himself be up above and beyond what his last name is. So he looks like the best receiver to come out of college football in a long time. So
I think as sports fans, we all do this really weird thing where we're like, His kid, though, is going to be. I don't think you're going to work for Mead Johnson and Walmart, Scott, just because your dad did. Like, that's so weird, bro. Why do we do that? Like, you're going to be a cobbler because your dad likes shoes. No, bro. I don't even care about shoes. And so I think that as sports fans, we all kind of do that weird thing. Like, I'm not waiting for Haley Jade to drop a rap album. Like, if she does, I'll listen to it. But I'm not like, we shouldn't put that stuff on people just because they're parents. Eminem, just for anybody that missed that. And so I think that is a weird thing we all do. And so much so that I was like, hey, we'll mention Bronny. I don't even know if you showed me 4 pictures of African American dudes, I couldn't tell you which one was Bronny. I would be like, oh, the tall one. But because his dad's great, I, as a sports fan, assume, hey, there's got to be something to him. But I mean, just because they're around discipline, I think is what makes them. They could be good at anything they want, and they already know how to get good at this from their dad. But I think that's a weird thing as sports fans that we do, is expect their kids to be good at the thing they're good at. I hope my kids aren't good at any of the shit I was good at growing up. Just saying that on the record so that they can watch this later.
Yeah. Okay. Great conversation. I love this segment that we're doing when we have time. Obviously, when we go into full season reviews and full season previews, we're not going to have time for this, but I love when we do. I love this back and forth. Next week, we're going to be reviewing at least the first 3 games of the NBA Finals. Might be 4. What's that, Dustin?
Game 3's on Wednesday. We'll be able to watch it live during the show.
So review the first 2 games and kind of watch the 3rd game as it's going. So, all right, and we'll talk about a few other things next week as well. But okay. Any last comments from anyone? Okay. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks.